All right, in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at lesson 9.1 on rounding fractions. Now, we've talked about before that if a number is greater than or equal to 5, that we round up. So if we looked at, say that's 5.7, and I want to round to the nearest whole number, well, 5 is the whole number. We look to the digit to the right. That 7 is 5 or greater, so that this then would round to be 6. So if I then have to say a number is 4 or less, so it is less than or equal to 4, then it stays the same. Or we could say that we are rounding down. Because if this was 5.3, again, if we rounded to the whole number, 5 is the whole number. I look to the digit to the right, the 3. 3 is 4 or less. It's less than 4. So I'm going to make this 5. Well, I'm really dropping off this additional tenths part. So that's why it's really rounding down. But I keep the digit that I am rounding to the same. And that's why then this answer is simply 5. So we're going to apply that same idea, but now with fractions. And in fractions, remember they're parts of a whole. So we're going to be looking at them as to taking them to a benchmark, such as half, or really 0, half, or 1. So let's look at an example here. Poisonous dart frog is 2 inches long. This is equal to 2/12 of a foot. Is 2/12 closest to 0, half, or 1? And really think of it as, well, is it closer to 0 of a foot, like there's nothing there, half a foot, 6 inches, or a whole foot, 12 inches? And this is also a nice part we need to identify, that we have it out of 12. Before, when we are looking at rounding, we are looking at it how it compared out of 10, because we were saying if it was 5 or greater, well, that'd be 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. But here we're looking at how does it compare to the denominator. So we're going to look at this and say, well, I'm going to graph 2/12 on a number line. Well, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh goodness, I made a mistake. That's normal. I'm human. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and a whole foot would be 12 inches. So if we have 2/12, that would be like saying, well, I've got 2 out of 12. So we would plot a point at 2/12. So is it closer to 0, half, or a whole? Well, I know that half a foot is 6 inches, or 6/12 of a foot. So which number, 0, half, or 1, is 2/12 closest to? Well, it's 2 digits, or 2 spots away. 1, 2, so it's 2 away from here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 digits away from being a half a foot, and it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 away from being a whole foot. Well, which one is it closer to? 2 is less, so that's why it's closer to it. So it is closer to the 0 on our number line. So the length of the poisonous dart frog is closest to 0 feet. But you think about it, 2 inches is not much of a foot. Now, if we were looking at this visually, we round down if it is closer to 0. So 1/10 would round down to 0. 6/10 would be half. Now, a perfect half of this would be 5/10. So 4/10 or 6/10 would be closer to half. And 9/10 is closer to 1, almost a whole. Let's look at that example 2. So round 4/9 to 0, half, or 1. Well, the number 4.5 is half of 9. So if we're looking at 9, remember this is our denominator. What is half of 9? Well, 4.5. So the numerator in 4/9 is 4, which is very close to 4.5, right? 4, and then we'd say that, well, that's 4.5, and this would be 3.5 if, oh, no, goodness, 3.5 on a number line, right? So it's really close to being half of 9. So we would say that 4/9 would round to 1/2. So if I had to graph it, 4.5 would be right here halfway of 9. Well, if we looked at this and said I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, this is 9/9, which is why this equals a whole 1. So if we had to plot a point, 4/9 would fall right here at the 4, because this would be 4/9. So halfway between 4/9 and 5/9 is half of 9 is 4.5. So it'd be closer to half, 1/2. Let's try another here. So 5/6. Well, 5/6 is 1 away from being a whole, so it would be saying I would round that to be 1. If I looked at it on a graph, this is 1. Oh, why do I keep doing that? Silly. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because if I had 6/6, that would be equal to a whole. Well, I've got 5/6, so that'd be right here, which is a whole lot closer to being a whole than it being half, and definitely not going to take it all the way down to 0. 5/8. All right, so if we're looking at 5/8, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, because 4/8 is equal to half. 5, 6, 7, 8, and remember, because 8/8 would be equal to a whole. Well, 5 would be right here, 5/8. So that is closer. It's only one step or 1/8 away from being half, where it would be 1, 2, 3/8 from being a whole. And obviously, since it's a 5, it'd be 5 steps, 5/8 away from being 0. So 5/8 would be about half. So if this is making sense to you at this point, you can go ahead and pause, move on to the practice homework pages of this. If you need a little bit more practice, keep on watching, and I'm going to keep going through. Do a few more examples here. So number 3, 1/8 would be about 0, because 1/8, if I had to use a number line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let's bring this down just to make it all nice and even. So 1/8 would fit right here, and so it would be closer to 0, where this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/8 would be half, and 5, 6, 7, 8, that'd be a whole, because it'd be 8/8. So I am closer to being at 0, because it's only 1/8 away. 5/9. If I'm going to look at this, well, we did this one earlier. Use the work we've already done to help us. I knew that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to be a whole. If I had 5/9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this would be 5/9. Halfway would be 4.5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, halfway would be 4.5. Well, this is 5, so this would be closer to saying it's half. 7/8. Again, it's only 1/8 away from being a whole, so it's closer to being 1, a whole, 8/8. 3/7. Well, 3, what's half of 7? You want to think of, well, what's half? Half of 7 would be 3.5. Well, 3 is really close to 3.5, so this would be close to half. 5/11. Well, what's half of 11? Well, you'd say, well, 5.5 is half of 11. So 5 is really close to 5.5, so it's about half. 4/5, well, what's half of 5? 2.5. And so if we were to say, well, 4 minus 2.5, well, that's going to be 1.5 away. And if it's 4 and 5, well, that's only 5 minus 1. That'd be, 5 minus 4 would be 1. So it's actually closer to being a whole. All right. So go ahead and move on to your practice pages. If you need more help, please let me know. We'll do more practice from there.